Hi, everybody. Welcome to WCA Extra. This is our live desk streaming show that kicks off every day around 9:15. Today, I just wanted to get one of our reporters on here, Calvin Cutler, to kind of just give us some people some clarity regarding dredging. Now, this has come up in the past as well, as far as people seeking potential solutions for flood mitigation. And Calvin, I know that you were at the presser yesterday, where the Secretary of Natural Resources, Julie Moore, kind of spoke a little bit about that. We had a special report on it at 11 as well. And I will kind of start off with a little tidbit of your story there, where one of the people you spoke with says, "I care more about my livelihood, family, and home, worth more than the life of a fish in the river," right? And I think there is a little bit of a disconnect as far as what the priorities are of the Department of Natural Resources and when it comes to dredging like that. So kind of just shed some light on as far as when and where dredging is appropriate and what they're saying about that, especially after last week's flooding. Do you hear me?
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you very much, John. It's a good question. It's a timely question that we get a lot after any flooding event, whether it be last summer's floods or the flooding that we saw last week. And there's a lot of questions from many communities about what role dredging plays, and that's removing silt, removing materials, removing things from the river physically to allow more space underneath and to allow the river to be deeper. What role that should play in flood mitigation and flood prevention. And so the Agency of Natural Resources has gotten a lot of these questions too. Yesterday, Secretary Julie Moore, appeared at the governor's press conference and said that, dredging does play a role in very specific circumstances, but there can also be unintended consequences of dredging if it's not used appropriately or not used in the right setting or space. And when you look at what, the role of the Agency of Natural Resources is, there is, I think you're right in pointing out that, in some ways, on its face, many perceive the agency to, be there to advocate and to, have government protections for wildlife, for natural resources, for biodiversity, that type of thing. But they also, in this case, do play a really critical role for, flood mitigation, dam safety, dam regulation, regulation of our river corridors and waterways and watersheds. And so there are, multiple interests, here that the state does have to balance. But Secretary Moore essentially said that if you dredge the river really it kind of depends on where the project is and where you're dredging. But when you dredge and when you are digging down into the river, you're essentially creating more space for water to flow. And that can also increase the velocity and the speed of water, right? Imagine if you have a stream that's 6 inches deep, you might be able to stand in that. But if the stream is, a foot deep or 2 feet deep, that might sweep you off your feet, right? Yeah. So that's a good example of, just the velocity that it can of water. And also when water speeds up and heads downstream, that can also cause erosion as well. The riverbanks,
Right.
a lot of, especially in our urban centers.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. In our urban centers, there's either brick or retaining wall or stones. Think about downtown Montpelier or places in Barrie along the Stevens Branch where water is channeled. But there's other places downstream through people's yards or homes that are right along the river that might not have those protections. Yeah. And so when you have quick water moving that's been dredged, that can also have negative consequences for neighbors downstream too. So it really does take a from the state's perspective and from Secretary Julie Moore's perspective yesterday, it takes a complete, more holistic view of the watershed and thinking about what is the totality of the work that we're doing and how does that affect everybody downstream. So it is a little bit more of a complex equation, maybe,
Yeah.
when you talk about dredging.
Well, there was one thing I wanted to add to that too, and it kind of goes off that point. She had mentioned too that just because if you're dredging in your area of the river, right, like you're looking out from your house and it's kind of caught up there. If you do that, there could be consequences down the river. So you have to think more so of anyone living downstream other than just your own property there. But that kind of leads to my next point, though, is that although it's frustrating for a lot of people, and especially we're again at another year of this. What are the solutions, that, especially the state is saying, that other than dredging? I don't know off the top of my head right now, honestly, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, right? And to be clear, Secretary Moore said that dredging can play a role in specific circumstances. It's not off the table entirely.
Yeah.
In fact, removing debris is actually a really important role as well, especially if it gets clogged under bridges and that type of thing as well. So allowing water to flow is important. But they say that in terms of allowing the river to run its natural course and to meander, really they say that the best solution is to try to allow more water to pool up upstream, allowing rivers to go over their banks in floodplains in areas that we've intentionally designated for that. Think about a recreational field or a park or a farm that has been bought out, right? Places that we are not developing in, or if we have developed, we are expecting it to flood, and so we're not putting human infrastructure, property, that type of thing in some of these areas. So really trying to allow floodplains and forests and others upstream so that water can rise up. This area can take on water, and that way it doesn't channel downstream and have devastating effects. Certainly though, these are expensive projects. We talk about floodplain restoration, buyouts. There's a lot of state and federal regulations that are involved with this work, and certainly these are long-term projects. And to your point earlier about the folks that we heard from yesterday in Barrie, there and other communities too. To be fair, there is frustration, and people do want answers. And what can we do now in the short term? Because here we are, we've had really devastating floods back to back, within the same year. And so there is, a desire among many to try to find solutions. But from the state's perspective, the best one that we have and that shows the best evidence of, helping mitigate floods is, to widen floodplains instead of making rivers deeper.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Kellen. And I know you were in Barrie, and again, seeing some of those people down there that are really going through another bit of a deja vu from last year as well. And but yeah, definitely, something that we'll keep our eye on as we go through the rest of this summer, and I guess in the years after this. But Calvin, thanks so much for hopping on again. Just giving some clarity for a lot of people. I know that a lot of people emailed in last night after your story aired, and if they didn't see it, of course, we'll pull it up in just a second. But Calvin Cutler, thanks so much for hopping on this morning, and I know you got a busy day ahead of you, so I'll let you go.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much. That was our Calvin Cutler, kind of just shedding some light on some issues regarding dredging. It was brought up yesterday's presser from Governor Scott and state officials, and of course we've been out quite a bit in the last few days seeing some of those flood-stricken communities. So I think with that in mind, I will bring up Calvin's package, our story here in just a sec, so we can kind of see what he saw the last few days here.
It's a familiar sight to many in the Granite City. Clouds of flood dust kicked up on a sweltering day, a reminder of last week's floods, which once again tore through town.
They can't win. Nobody can win.
Kyle Green spent the last year helping rebuild his neighbor's home on Harrington Street in Barrie. But when the Stevens branch over the Winooski flooded, as shown in this time lapse, the community was on edge. Green says he was heartbroken to see a year of recovery washed away last week.
I watched them for a year rebuild all their stuff and just to have it turn right around and just take it again. And now they're defeated.
He and others in town suggest dredging rivers and removing things like silt and debris to allow more water to flow, potentially alleviating Barrie's flood problems. But Agency of Natural Resources Secretary Julie Moore says dredging rivers needs to be done carefully and in certain situations.
Even though it may seem a little out of place as A&R Secretary to stand here and say this, our approach to managing dredging and in-stream work is not about fish habitat or water quality. It's about public safety.
Vermont has 7,000 miles of rivers and streams.
My driveway, my house, my livelihood, my family, and my friends are worth more than a fish. No disrespect to the fish.
Officials say dredging can also have negative consequences downstream, like speeding up the velocity of water and causing erosion.
Without thinking about the whole river system, an approach that may better protect your property could have catastrophic consequences for your neighbors.
Instead, officials say, the most effective way to mitigate floods is to widen floodplains instead of making rivers deeper. Moore adds that storms driven by climate change mean that floods are going to be more common. Reporting in Barrie, Calvin Cutler, Channel 3 News.
Again, that was our Calvin Cutler, again, talking about some flood mitigation and what the state is saying as far as guidance moving forward. You can see that on our website, WCAX.com, and of course, we'll be continuing to update you on flood recovery efforts as they unfold. We're taking a look at our Middlebury camera. Middlebury, right, Peter?
Yep.
Kind of a beautiful day out there, but we do have some kind of impending rain on the way. Yeah.
It's just a rinse and
Yeah.
repeat all over again. I feel like it's been showers and thunderstorms here and there each and every afternoon, and it's another afternoon of that. But what I'm going to say, and this is the good news, it's one more afternoon of that, and then we really do have some big time improvements heading our way here to close out the rest of the weekend, heading into the upcoming weekend. Before we get there, though, I did want to quickly recap some of the storms that we saw here through the course of the night last night. Or last evening and last night, I should say. You can see across central and southern portions of the area, a little bit of minor flooding once again in Essex County, New York. As a matter of fact, there were some road closures as a result of that again. Then across southern portions of the area, that's where we saw some wind damage, especially the far southern portions of the area. Some wind damage here through the course of the night last night. Wanted to show you this just across the border in New York, Glens Falls. How about a wind gust upwards of 87 miles per hour last evening? Just goes to show you how strong some of those storms were. The good news is we're not talking about that right now. As a matter of fact, a rather clear and quiet start to our Wednesday morning out there. A few pop-up showers kind of intermittently hitting here and there across New York's North Country. We'll see a few pop-up showers here and there as we head through the first half of the day today. Here's the view across the region. You can see places like Rutland, Linden, talking a good amount of sunshine out there. The further north you go, though, Burlington, Newport looking rather gray and cloudy right now. I think generally we'll start off the day with a little bit of sunshine, but a few clouds mixing in. Then as we head towards later today, we're going to get more cloud cover and, yes, those showers and thunderstorms once again as we head towards the mid to late afternoon and into the evening hours tonight. Temperatures out there right now, we are a tad cooler than where we were just 24 hours ago. Most of us right now in the low to mid 70s. Yesterday at this point, we were already talking some places making a run towards that 80 degree mark. So I do suspect we're going to be at least a few degrees cooler today, but the humidity, that's really not going anywhere quite yet, but improvements heading our way as I mentioned. So here's how the rest of the day shapes up. Again, as we head towards about noontime, most of us still still primarily dry. We'll bring the clock forward towards about 2 o'clock. You start to see a few of these showers and thunderstorms starting to fire up. Those continue here through the first part of the evening hours, and then those will gradually begin to subside here as we head towards tonight. Heading into your day tomorrow, I think we start off the day with a few clouds out there. Those clouds quickly begin to diminish, and we get in on more sunshine here as we head towards tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. In terms of how much rain we're talking about, some places that where we do see some of those heavier storms set up, that could quickly produce an inch plus here as we head through the afternoon and evening hours today before it begins to wrap up as we head towards tonight. The good news is the severe weather potential not as high as what we saw here through the course of the day yesterday, but it is still a level 2 out of 5 threat here across the southern half of the region, highlighted in that yellow color right along the Massachusetts state line for places like Bennington and Windham counties. So that's something that we'll keep an eye on. So there is still the potential for a few storms to have a few gusty winds, a few higher wind gusts, I should say, as we head through the afternoon and evening hours today. What do those storms do? Well, they knock down our temperatures here as we head towards the end of the week and into the weekend, back into the upper 70s and low to mid 80s heading our way. And take a look at what happens to those dew points. They drop off into the 50s and lower 60s, so signs of more comfortable, less humid air heading our way. First, so your forecast here through the rest of the day today. Well, think of most of us are generally in the upper 70s and 80s, but those, especially in the upper valley, could make a run towards that 90-degree mark once again this afternoon. Again, afternoon showers and thunderstorms overhead. Tonight, those showers and storms wrap up as overnight lows fall back into the upper 50s and 60s. And heading into your day on Thursday, we'll start off the day with a little bit of cloud cover out there, but I think we get more sunshine developing here as we head through the course of your day tomorrow. Daytime highs, look at that, pretty nice day, mid to upper 70s and lower 80s, and that's really just the start of the pretty nice weather out there. Heading into the weekend, I think most of us talking upper 70s, low to mid 80s. That really continues into next week. Really talking a good amount of sunshine as well through the weekend and the start of next week. And dew points back to more comfortable levels. We'll be talking about dew points generally in the upper 50s and 60s. So not feeling nearly as humid as where we have been the last several days.
Yeah, look, it's one of those times, too, where you have a day like today,
Yeah.
where it's, pretty temperate out right now.
Yeah.
We're actually in the future. Just plan accordingly. Don't
Yeah.
do what I do. I a lot of times will run it real close, and I'll
Yeah.
be caught in the rain
Yep.
out on my bike or something.
Yeah.
And you don't want me doing that, so.
Good news is
Yeah.
one last day of it.
One last day,
One
and then
last
it's
day.
smooth sailing, nice
Yep.
summer weather, nothing too sweltering. So
Yeah, the weekend really looking pretty darn nice.
that's right. Can't beat that.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Peter, and thank you for watching WCA Extra. Of course, you can see Peter and I in just a couple hours on WCAX at noon, and see all of our evening shows, and go to our website, WCAX.com, for anything else you might have missed. But I think until then, we'll let you guys go, get your morning started, and we'll see you in a bit.